your work against his?
Okay, so I'm in Starbucks and I'm watching the barista scratching her eye, itching her eye, what would you call it? Rubbing her eye. And she's waiting on a mother and a little boy, maybe 6 years old. And so for a few minutes, after watching her do that pretty intensely, I'm trying to put it out of my mind, because even before the pandemic, I might have been tempted to ask her to wash her hands, but from the few times in my life that I have tried to politely do something like that, it's never met with understanding. So I can't say I tried to put it out of my mind, but I very quickly started to try to figure out how could I convince her to just wash her hands without upsetting her, because I really did want a coffee and I didn't want to make her want to fight, because I could tell. So, and actually, of course, I recorded the conversation. I turned on my recorder anticipating, like, if I ask in the most self-deprecating, make fun of myself, polite, would you mind way, she still said, I didn't do that. And I was focused on getting my coffee, so I basically said, oh, I mean, it is possible she didn't realize it. It's possible that she, had lost a job recently and was really scared to death to get in trouble for it, and how, who's gonna go to the video cameras to prove something like that. But the whole point of this is not about the lie. Well, it is about the lie. It's about the lie when it's the simplest, most basic thing. And I was like, I should attach the recording here, but that'll take another half an hour to do that. Maybe I'll do it later. But, even when I said, you know what, I'm neurotic, I'm old, humor me, would you mind, please don't get upset, because it's hard. I do the same thing. I said I was once at my doctor's office, and I was laughing at the nurses. Even they blow their nose and they're shaking hands with people walking in the door 5 minutes later while taking their temperature. It's hard. No one wants to fight every time you turn around when someone drops the ball, but your eyes are open to just how often people are dropping the ball. But anyway, back to the lie. The fact that people can't be honest with each other on something so simple and basic, even when I was, putting myself down. I mean, groveling. Just because that has been like my whole life. And black or white, people, if you, like when I was younger, I would have had the argument in a hopefully positive way to try to get her to see, it's not a big deal. You don't have to lie. The lie is the problem. Because it's not just that one lie. This is what we do to each other all day long, because people in our society are afraid of each other. Because it is so cutthroat. So that's why I laugh, with tears in my eyes, laugh when I see women, rooting for other women. When it's on the TV, people are buying it a lot more, but in their like warped little brains, they actually think that by, being agreeable with the status quo, they don't have to take a closer look at home at how they're really treating someone, say, in a situation like that. Because down at the bottom, those little lies are what life is all about. Because in that moment, and I'm getting all dramatic because I mean, she gave me my coffee. I kept trying to keep the conversation going in a way where, it was changing, and I forget what we ended up talking about. Oh, I wanted to give her a tip. I just wanted to give her $1. She's like, oh, I can't take tips. And this is at a Target. And she gave me a receipt, though, so that I could call and, say something nice about her. And, I mean, we had such a nice conversation, I wouldn't have minded doing that, but at the same time, no. The fact that I had to grovel doesn't make me mad at her, but it disappoints me. But the point is, it's not even just about her. This is how people are in our society. And if it was a slightly more complicated lie, where there was a lot more at stake, people that could so easily have turned into a situation where someone would call the police. And that's why I have been recording for the past 27 years, 28 years almost. I stopped leaving my home without a camera of some kind on my shoulder, a recording device, because I honestly, with the best of intentions, might accidentally have a conversation like that with someone as nothing as that. And because they are so afraid, and actually Starbucks a couple of times, they are so afraid of being that one to get the axe. CYA, that's what they call it, right? And I'm just amazed that it's only gotten worse. And it's funny because the first time I heard CYA, it was Mrs. Sarcone in the high school, when I became a substitute teacher at the high school where I grew up. A small town, small school, everybody knows everybody. And I was, if there were homecoming queens, I would have at least been a runner-up. I was very well liked and very, I hate the word popular, but just, I think, trusted and respected is the key word I'm going for here. And so within a very short time, matter of months, you say the wrong thing, I believe the word asshole slipped out of my mouth at one point talking to kids, so I guess, I don't know, maybe that is a big deal, but it was more than that, though. But I lost that job. They just stopped calling me, so as a substitute teacher, it's not all like this big drama. But for a good month, they strung me along, like just not telling me that they were gonna never call me again. And anyway, I didn't want to get into that story, but it's literally one cruelty after another, all based on the inability to be honest with each other. And I don't mean in a airy, poetic way and in a naive, utopian sort of, the world would be perfect if we could just get along, No, I'm hardly that far gone. But I thought I had a solution. I don't. But if there was a solution, it would be in the form of simply contemplating that reality, so that maybe the next time, I don't know, a little more kindness comes through. Because I feel like at this point, all I have to go on is my thoroughly destroyed life, which was destroyed because, like in some of my videos, you can hear people say they're trying to break my door down. Why, you might ask yourself, for the 5 minutes you're listening to someone banging on my door, shaking the doorknob, and then saying, because your dog tried to bite me. so your dog's got to go, and if your dog don't go, you go. Like, just nothing. And no, more importantly, the part of that sticks out the most to me is, or what's most memorable is, kick it in for real. What's she gonna do? I can do whatever I want. Because a dog tried to bite me. So you got to get rid of your pets. Your dogs and cats, they gotta go. And if they don't go, you go. And it just amazes me that I have that memorized, etched into my memory, I should say. It's certainly not something I would want anywhere near me, and yet that is an example of the kind of impressions that have been made on me in my life experience, being tortured by disgusting, stupid people, of which there is an abundance. But kick it in for real. What's she gonna do? Think about that. Your neighbor says to you, or you hear your neighbor say to another neighbor while they're banging on your door, kick it in for real. What's she gonna do? To this day, 14 years later, I still, almost 15 years later, I think in the spring, I still don't know exactly what she meant by that. I can't do anything if someone who sells heroin kicks in my door. That's how confident she was. So here we are 15 years later, and I'm listening to Joy Reid talk about how black people are afraid to call the police. I mean, it's different everywhere, but I'm getting off track. The point is, there's something to that. It's worth contemplating. And I'll spend the rest of my life wishing I had an answer, because it all started taking such a toll on my health that I have to laugh at myself, naively believing that if people understood how I was internalizing all of this, I wanted to find a real picture of myself to put next to the more attractive pictures in this string of photos, to show the before and after, and over a very short time, how my health just like literally got flushed down the toilet. And some of these shots of text with red underline are my own doctor meeting her for the first time, showing her a picture of how healthy I was just about a year, like 2 years before I met her. And I wanted her to see, like, look how much I've changed in just 2 years. You know, so all the systems of my body seem to be collapsing. And it might have just been from stress. Well, it was also from a very bad injury, from a bad fall I took. But again, the damage was in my back. And I did have a problem with my hip, but over time, because of the way the doctors were talking to me, years passed, and I basically got screwed over by doctors who, we could speculate, but in writing, for her to say, she showed me a picture of a woman in a pool, says it's her, but I have trouble believing this. So it documents the very reason I was showing her the picture. Like, how could this possibly have, how could I have changed, in 18 months, like so quickly, when I was in the best health of my life. I mean, I was getting older, so I understand. And that's all she kept saying to me was, we're getting older, that's all it is. She was the biggest racist, she was black. biggest racist on the planet, and I could feel it from the beginning. But like, white privilege will teach us, and like most people from where I come from have been trained to believe, black people can't be racist. And so I had that same point of view, because it's like I could feel it, but I didn't have the words for it. And you'd catch her like sort of, when you ask her a question as she's walking away, and she turns around and you catch her rolling her eyes like, what is it, white lady? It was just so glaringly obvious to me. And yet, because she wasn't actually saying that, and I really didn't want to have that conversation, I was grateful to have a doctor, and wanted to always think the best, and forever self-deprecating, just to get on with it. But yeah, that doctor fucked me up on so many levels, in so many ways. And again, so now I have to listen to this crap about like all these generalizations about how, this group does this to that group. And it's like, no, on an individual basis, the bullshit that goes on. And racism was never my wheelhouse. I'm not interested in talking about race. But that's what I've been dealt for 27, 28 years. When I first got beat up by a black woman cop. When I went through the subway without a token. The way 1,000 people do every hour in New York, probably. And it's not something that I am proud of, but I didn't have, I had $1 to my name, and I was going somewhere for my birthday, and I rationalized, whatever it is. It's not something that you get a concussion over. Unless, I don't want to get into that anymore. So, the lies. So I really just made this for a sound test. But I was trying to put these thoughts together with these JPEGs, and there's just too much to tell. Basically what they represent is, I can't do anything without a doctor thinking I'm crazy because I looked good in a picture. And I wonder, was she instructed by, someone she knows, like, make her sound crazy in your notes? Which, by the way, I had the notes because I had to get them years later to give to another doctor, and I just happened to look at them. I opened them up and I couldn't believe what I saw. That's like 10 years after she wrote that. I didn't realize she wrote that, which is why I continued to see her for so long. People are fucked up. And I can't help but feel the irony of suffering for things that just so needlessly happened. Didn't have to be. Condo owners who rent to heroin dealers, who happen to also be the management, who also happen to be on the board. And in one of those letters it clearly says, the recently adopted no video rule, and a month later, here's a $24,000, and then that was September, and then by October it's $25,000. And I asked the fucking mayor on the government TV channel, like, somebody help me here, look at what they're doing to me. And all anyone could come up with, oh, well, look at that crazy lady. Look at that crazy lady getting kicked out of her home of 16 years because she videotaped heroin dealers and the cops weren't doing anything about it. I used to desperately hope that by talking about this, somebody would come along and sue the right person for damages. I mean, all that's been done to me. And at this point, I just feel like if, you know, if half of us are going to die from the pandemic, which is probably a bioweapon, people will be giving it to each other soon enough. You can probably buy it on the black market and put it on your enemy's doorknobs, which is one reason why I wanted to have that conversation with my doctor, because I honestly believe that Bikram, and not Bikram himself personally, but his minions, might have actually gone out of their way, because I had tweeted about his bullshit before any of the women came forward. And I have no doubt that the website I made in 2007 and daring to speak out a little more openly put the idea in people's heads. But still, I had to be left in the crazy corner. And the fact that that was okay with people I grew up with, seemingly decent people I met along the way. You know, I go through my life thinking I didn't make the cut. And I accept that. You know, I was treated like royalty when I was growing up, but it was a really small town. And as soon as I went to college, I got a dose of, you know what, maybe I'm not so special. And then you go live in New York City, and actually I felt pretty special in New York City in the best way. But again, you know, you have a couple of lucky things happen to you, and things seem one way one day and quite another the next. But alright, this is enough.